Hi, thanks for joining me today. We're going to make James Beard's pumpkin pie. Hi, this is Patrick from Explorer's Kitchen. Thanks for joining me today. We're gonna make some pumpkin pie today. Although, I gotta say, pumpkins are out of season now, so we've got butternut squash. It's gonna turn out just as well. You can substitute butternut squash, acorn squash, or just use a can of pumpkin and you'll make a fantastic pie. This recipe is from James Beard. I've made it before, it's turned out really great. It's got some special things like brandy and a lot of cream in it, and even some spices that you might not be used to using like mace. It's gonna be a great recipe. Come along, we'll make it together. Start by splitting your squash in half. Now the way I learned it is to use a cleaver. If you need a mallet, go ahead and use a mallet. To do that, all you have to do is get it started and use the mallet to help you get all the way through. Look at that. We're gonna scoop out the seeds, put it on a roasting tray at 400 degrees to roast it for about an hour. So let's scoop it out. On an ice cream scoop works really well for getting this out. Now we just take these and pop them right in the oven at 400. After about an hour, check it with a knife, make sure it's tender, it should insert and come out cleanly, then you're ready to make the rest of the recipe. I want to take a minute to thank my friend Fausto for requesting this recipe. He lives in Panama and I wanted to make sure I made it from scratch from a squash, not from a can. That way he can make it at home himself. So Fausto, if you can't get a hold of a can of pumpkin, feel free to roast a squash like this, a butternut, an acorn, a kabocha, any sort of squash, and you should be able to just make this recipe just fine. Also, I want to point out to everybody that you don't have to throw away these seeds. You can clean them, wash them, and roast them, and they make a tasty snack. So we're gonna roast this for an hour, and we'll check back again soon. While the squash is roasting, you can use this time to get your pie crust ready. This crust is one we made as part of our two-part series comparing crusts from Bon Appetit, America's Test Kitchen, and Milk Street. Feel free to use your favorite pie crust or use one of our recipes that we're linking to in the top right corner. Got our crust for our pumpkin pie all ready to go. Now let's par bake it at 400 degrees with some pie weights on it. Instead of traditional pie weights, I'm actually using some chains that I have laying around. First the tin foil goes in. And the chains. Of course you can use traditional pie weights or beans or even coins. I just happen to have some chains sitting around, so that makes for an easy pie weight solution for me. Now the crust is par cooked. Let's pull it out of the oven and finish the pumpkin pie. Now we have a perfectly par cooked crust ready for our pie. Go ahead and turn the heat on the oven down to 375, down from 400, and we can finish it. So we already roasted these butternut squash, and like I said before, you can use pumpkin or another squash, but this is ready to be pureed and prepped for the rest of our recipe. So let's scoop this out and puree it in our blender. So we need 2 cups of the filling. Now this squash is tender enough, it'll come out really easy. I'm just gonna stuff it down in here. It releases from the skin so easily. So it looks like we need just a little bit more than half a squash in order to get our 2 cups. So let's take a little bit of the second half. Yeah, that looks like it should be about right. Let's put our top on and puree it. Needs a little liquid to help it along, so I'm going to pour some of our cream that we're going to be using in the recipe right in with it and throw it back in the blender to make sure we have a very smooth puree. We need 2 cups of cream for this recipe, so I'm just going to pour maybe about half a cup in with my squash to help it puree a little bit easier. got really thick. So it looks like cream might not be the best option here. Let's put our cognac in instead. The recipe calls for 1/3 of a cup of cognac. We're going to add some of that to our squash, help it get pureed. Alright, what have we learned? Probably want to use a food processor instead of a blender for this. Yeah, good learning opportunity. Let's get this out of the way. Finish our recipe. Actually, the squash looks really smooth anyway, so did a good job after all. Alright, to recap where we are, we just pureed our squash with a little bit of heavy cream and the cognac, 1/3 of a cup. Now we're going to make the rest of the recipe. We need to crack 6 eggs and lightly beat them. Add that to our squash. We add our eggs to our squash. We're going to add our 2 cups of heavy cream, a half teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of cinnamon, a half teaspoon of mace. We're going to fresh grind some cloves for this. You can use pre-ground. We need a half teaspoon of these cloves. Then we combine it all together. You can use a hand mixer if you want, but it comes together fairly fast with a whisk. Don't forget the brown sugar. 1 cup brown sugar. Then whisk it all together to combine. It should come together pretty quick. Make sure you're scraping the sides and the bottom as you go. Make sure that you have a nice smooth texture. Strain it right into your pie tin. James Beard's recipe makes enough for 2 9-inch pies, so make sure you have 2 crusts prepared. Otherwise, if you don't, you can always put extras in a small crock or another glass dish that they'll cook up just fine. You'll have to eat it with a spoon, no crust, so that's why it's better to prepare 2 crusts in advance for this. If you do cook it in a smaller container, just make sure you watch that other container to make sure it doesn't get overcooked as you're baking the main pie. Before popping it in the oven, top your pies with 4 tablespoons of finely chopped candied ginger. Then bake at 375 for about 30 to 35 minutes till the outside's set and the center is just about set. Time to taste James Beard's pumpkin pie. It's really good. So I've made this recipe before. It's the first time though that I've used butternut squash in it. I like the flavor that it lends. It's sweet and it's very smooth. The crust is perfectly cooked. You can see there's some good caramelization on there. The center is perfectly cooked too. Cook it to about 160 to 165 to maybe 170 if you're pushing it, but that might lean a little towards overcooked. But you want to keep the center custardy and velvety. The spices are perfect too, so grind them fresh if you can. You saw I ground my cloves fresh. It's a little hard for me to get a hold of fresh mace to grind myself, but of course, anytime you grind spices, try and do it as close to fresh as possible. Thank you to my friend Fausto for requesting this recipe. It's always fun to make this, and I'm glad you asked me to do it. Hopefully you'll be able to make this yourself at home, and hopefully this process is easy enough for you to follow. If you have any other questions, please let me know. I'm happy to go through any more with you. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe, give me a like if you enjoyed this today. Thanks for your time, and we'll see you next time on Explorer's Kitchen. Daisy. Up, up, up. You want some pumpkin? Yeah. Want some of these? One for you, one for me. One for me,